There's a beauty routine being practiced right now in expensive spas across Manhattan, London, and Tokyo that would have been perfectly at home in a Victorian lady's boudoir in 1873. The women paying $300 per session have no idea they're repeating a ritual that killed dozens of socialites over a century ago. And the companies selling these treatments, they're banking on your ignorance. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you will make you read every single ingredient list differently. Let me take you back to a moment that shouldn't exist in history books, but does. March 1889. A 23-year-old woman named Elizabeth Wharton lies in her London bedroom, her skin an otherworldly, luminous white, porcelain perfection. Every man who'd seen her at the opera 2 nights before had been mesmerized. Her husband discovers her at dawn. She's been dead for approximately 6 hours. The cause? The very thing that made her beautiful: her skin. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was an epidemic hidden behind parlor doors and mourning gloves, whispered about in ladies' magazines using coded language. And here's what nobody wants you to know: it never actually stopped. The Victorian era wasn't just obsessed with beauty. They weaponized it, turned it into a religion with saints and martyrs. The altar was the vanity table. The sacrifice was your health, sometimes your life. But you participated anyway, because the alternative was social invisibility. Sound familiar? Here's where this gets interesting. In 1852, a British chemist published a formula that promised to deliver the one thing every Victorian woman desperately wanted: skin so pale it looked translucent, skin that proved you'd never worked a day under the sun, skin that separated you from the servant class, from the common masses, from ordinariness itself. The main ingredient? Arsenic. Straight up poison. And they knew it. But let me be very clear about something, because this is where most people get the story wrong. These women weren't stupid. They weren't naive country girls duped by snake oil salesmen. Many of them were educated. They read, they heard the warnings, and they used it anyway. Because the social cost of aging, of sun damage, of looking lower class was higher than the risk of death. Think about that calculation for a second. Really think about it. These women were choosing a poison they knew could kill them, because being invisible was worse than being dead. The product was called Fowler's solution, and it was everywhere. You could buy it at any chemist, no prescription needed. It promised gradual skin lightening, a youthful glow, reduced blemishes. The advertisements showed illustrations of angelic women with impossible skin. The testimonials read like modern Instagram captions: life-changing, miraculous, worth every penny. What they didn't tell you in the advertisements was what happened after 6 months of use. The arsenic accumulated in your tissues, your nervous system started misfiring, your stomach lining deteriorated, your hair fell out, so you bought arsenic-laced hair tonics to fix it, adding more poison to your system. You developed a distinctive garlic odor, so you bought arsenic-laced perfumes to mask it. Every solution created a new problem that required another arsenic product. The beauty industry had accidentally invented subscription-based poisoning. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. They didn't stop using it when people started dying. They reformulated, made it more palatable, changed the packaging, adjusted the marketing, because the demand never disappeared. Women kept buying it, in secret if necessary, under different names, through underground networks. The Victorian beauty industry learned a crucial lesson that modern corporations still use. If the desire is strong enough, people will accept almost any risk. Now, you're probably thinking this is just a dark history lesson, a cautionary tale from a more ignorant time. You're wrong. Dead wrong, and I need you to pay very close attention to what comes next, because this is where everything connects. In 2007, the FDA conducted random testing of cosmetics imported into the United States. They found lead in lipsticks from major brands, not trace amounts, significant levels. Some contained more lead than was legally allowed in candy. When confronted, these companies didn't recall the products. They didn't apologize. They cited loopholes in cosmetic regulation. They said the amounts were technically permissible under current guidelines. They kept selling them. Some of those lipsticks are still on shelves today, just with slightly modified formulas that hover right at the legal threshold. But lead is just the obvious one, the one they got caught with. Let me tell you about the others. The Victorian beauty cabinet contained arsenic acid, lead carbonate, mercury chloride, and belladonna. That last one is particularly interesting. Belladonna, which literally means beautiful woman in Italian, it's a deadly nightshade derivative. Victorian women would drop it directly into their eyes to dilate their pupils, creating a doe-eyed, romantic look. The side effects included blurred vision, sensitivity to light, and eventual blindness. They accepted this as the price of beauty. Now, walk into any modern pharmacy and look at the eye drops marketed for redness relief. Look at the active ingredients. You'll find tetrahydrozoline, nafazoline, phenylephrine. These are vasoconstrictors. They work by constricting blood vessels in your eyes. Use them long enough and your eyes become dependent. Stop using them and you experience rebound redness worse than the original problem. You're trapped in a cycle. Sound familiar? It should. It's the exact same mechanism as the Victorian arsenic subscriptions, just with better PR and FDA approval. But I want to go deeper. I want to show you the one practice that truly survived intact from the Victorian era to today, hidden in plain sight behind medical terminology and spa luxury branding. This is the one that made me realize the beauty industry isn't using old tricks. They're using the exact same formulas, just renamed. In 1870, a process called enameling became wildly popular among wealthy Victorian women. Here's how it worked. A mixture of white lead, arsenic, and zinc oxide would be painted onto the face and neck. As it dried, it created a smooth porcelain-like finish that hid every imperfection. Every wrinkle disappeared, every blemish vanished. You looked like a painted doll, a living sculpture. The effect lasted for weeks if you were careful. If you didn't sweat, didn't wash your face, didn't expose yourself to heat or moisture, you basically had to stop living to maintain the illusion. The women who did this regularly developed lead poisoning. Their skin underneath the enamel would deteriorate, becoming gray and papery, so they'd need heavier applications, thicker layers, more frequent treatments. The enamel was eating their faces while simultaneously hiding the damage it caused. The perfect trap. Now, let me tell you what's happening right now in high-end medical spas. They're offering something called microblading combined with BB glow treatments. Microblading uses tiny needles to implant pigment under your skin. BB Glow is a semi-permanent foundation tattooed into your face using a similar needle technique. The promise? Perfect skin that never washes off. No more morning makeup routine, just permanent, filtered perfection. The results last 6 months to 2 years, depending on how deep they go. Do you see it yet? This is enameling. Same concept, same appeal, same fundamental process. Just swap lead-based paint for tattoo pigments and sterilized needles. The medical terminology makes it sound safe. The spa setting makes it feel luxurious. The before and after photos make it look necessary. But strip away the modern packaging and you're looking at an 1870 beauty treatment that hospitalized hundreds of women. And here's what they don't tell you during the consultation. Those pigments are permanent foreign substances being embedded in your facial skin. Your immune system will try to break them down. That's why they fade, but also why they never completely disappear. Years later, women report patches of discoloration, irregular fading, and in some cases, granulomas, which are basically inflamed lumps where the body's tried to wall off the pigment it can't eliminate. The treatment designed to give you perfect skin can leave you with permanent damage that no amount of makeup will cover. But the companies offering these services are protected by consent forms and liability waivers. You signed up for this. You paid for this. You wanted this. Just like Victorian women wanted enameling. The desire for perfect skin overrides the rational assessment of long-term risk. Human nature hasn't changed. The beauty industry has just gotten better at exploiting it. Let me show you another connection that's even more direct. Victorian women used mercury-based creams to fade freckles and age spots. Mercury is a potent skin lightener. It works by inhibiting melanin production. The results were dramatic. Dark spots would fade within weeks. Your entire complexion would lighten several shades. You'd look younger, more aristocratic, more valuable in the marriage market. The side effects were kidney damage, neurological problems, and a condition called mercurial erethism, which caused anxiety, irritability, and eventually psychosis. The Mad Hatter syndrome from Alice in Wonderland, that was mercury poisoning from hat making, the same substance women were smearing on their faces nightly. In 1990, mercury was banned in cosmetics in the United States, officially. But here's what actually happened. In 23 separate incidents between 2010 and 2019, the FDA found mercury in skin lightening creams being sold both online and in ethnic beauty stores, levels up to 33,000 times the legal limit. These weren't knockoff products from shady manufacturers. Some were branded items from established companies operating in a legal gray zone, importing products under cosmetic loopholes, selling them to communities where lighter skin is still aggressively valued. The Victorian beauty standard of pale, unblemished skin never died. It just migrated. In parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, skin lightening is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The products use hydroquinone, kojic acid, and yes, sometimes still mercury despite the bans. Because the laws in many countries are under-enforced, the demand is overwhelming, and the social pressure is immense. A woman in Lagos faces the same calculation as a woman in Victorian London. Is the health risk worth the social advantage? Too often, the answer is yes. And Western beauty companies know this. They've learned to play both sides. In Europe and North America, they sell self-tanners and bronzers, promoting the healthy, sun-kissed glow. In Asia and Africa, subsidiary companies or licensed partners sell lightening creams, promoting the prestigious pale complexion. Same parent corporations, opposite messages, both profitable, both exploiting insecurity, both descendants of Victorian beauty ideology that said your natural skin is wrong and you need to buy products to fix it. But I want to show you the most disturbing survival of all, the one that proves the Victorian beauty playbook isn't just influential, it's actively being republished. In 1860, tight lacing became the defining beauty practice of the era. Corsets were cinched to create an impossibly small waist. The ideal measurement was 18 inches. Grown women strangling their organs into unnatural positions to achieve a silhouette that screamed refinement and self-control. The health consequences were catastrophic. Displaced organs, restricted breathing, fractured ribs, fainting spells that became so common they were romanticized as feminine delicacy. Women carried smelling salts everywhere because losing consciousness was just part of being fashionable. Doctors railed against tight lacing, medical journals published studies, autopsies revealed deformed rib cages and crushed livers. None of it mattered. The social pressure was too strong. A natural waist was vulgar. It suggested lack of discipline, lower class origins, insufficient femininity. So women kept lacing tighter. Some died, most just suffered. All of it was considered normal. Fast forward to today. Waist trainers. They're marketed by celebrities with millions of followers. The pitch is identical to Victorian corset advertisements. Achieve an hourglass figure, train your body into a new shape, discipline your silhouette. The modern version uses latex and Velcro instead of whalebone and lace, but the mechanism is identical. You're compressing your midsection for hours at a time to temporarily reduce your waist measurement. The Instagram posts show dramatic before and after photos. What they don't show is that the results disappear the moment you remove the trainer. Because you haven't lost fat or gained muscle, you've just compressed yourself, temporarily displaced your organs. The Victorian practice with a millennial marketing strategy. And here's where it gets even more direct. Some companies have started selling corsets again, not as historical costumes, as legitimate shapewear, medical-grade steel boning, lacing systems designed for extreme cinching. The marketing specifically references Victorian elegance and timeless beauty standards. They've dropped all pretense. They're selling you 1860 technology in 2024 packaging, betting that you won't make the connection or won't care if you do. The bet is working. The waist trainer market is projected to hit $400 million globally by 2025. Millions of women are voluntarily participating in a beauty practice that killed and maimed their great-great-grandmothers. Why? Because the fundamental equation hasn't changed. Social media has just amplified the pressure. Now, you're not comparing yourself to the women at the local ball. You're comparing yourself to filtered, edited, photoshopped images from around the world. The inadequacy is global. The solution being sold is Victorian. Now, I need you to understand something crucial. I'm not telling you this to shame anyone who uses these products or practices. That's not the point. Shame is just another control mechanism. What I'm showing you is that the beauty industry has been running the same scam for over 150 years. They've just gotten better at hiding the repetition, better at making old dangers look like new innovations, better at convincing each generation that their products are different, safer, more scientific than what came before. But the core manipulation remains identical. Create an impossible standard, make sure that standard changes just enough that you can never quite achieve it, sell increasingly extreme solutions, normalize the side effects, profit from the desperation, rinse and repeat across centuries. Victorian women used arsenic because pale skin was the standard. Modern women use tanning beds despite knowing they cause cancer because bronzed skin is the current standard. The poison changed, the logic didn't. Victorian women used belladonna to dilate their pupils. Modern women use cosmetic procedures to enlarge their eyes. The method evolved, the goal remained the same. Victorian women used mercury to lighten their skin. Modern women still do in countries where those products aren't banned. Nothing changed except the geography. This is the part where I need to tell you something that the beauty industry desperately doesn't want you to realize. None of these standards are natural. None of them are neutral. None of them emerged organically from human aesthetic preference. They were all constructed, deliberately, by people who profit when you feel inadequate. The Victorian pale skin standard, created by an aristocracy that needed visual markers to separate themselves from working classes. The tanned skin standard that replaced it emerged when manufacturing moved indoors, and suddenly pale skin meant you were stuck in a factory while rich people vacationed. The current standard that somehow demands you be both tanned and poreless, curvy and thin, youthful and mature, natural-looking while obviously enhanced, that's just the latest iteration of an impossible equation designed to keep you buying. And here's the mechanism that makes this truly insidious. Each generation looks back at the previous one and thinks, how could they have been so foolish? How could they not see they were being poisoned, deformed, mutilated in the name of beauty? We're so much smarter now, so much more informed. We have science and regulations and consumer protections. We'd never fall for something so obviously dangerous. Except we are, right now, with full knowledge. We just call it wellness, self-care, optimization, preventative measures, investment in ourselves. The language has changed. The exploitation hasn't. Let me give you one final example that ties this all together. In 1875, a beauty practice called cosmetic venesection became popular. It involved deliberately bleeding yourself to achieve a pale, ethereal appearance. The logic was that reducing blood volume would make your skin more translucent, more delicate. Women would visit medical practitioners who would open veins and drain blood. Some did this monthly. The weakness and fatigue that followed was considered proof of refinement. Delicate ladies were supposed to be fragile. Anemia was aristocratic. This practice was condemned by most doctors. Occasionally, women died from it. It persisted anyway for nearly 2 decades before gradually falling out of fashion, not because of health concerns, but because the beauty ideal shifted. Now let me tell you about a modern trend called blood facials, also known as vampire facials. This is a real thing being done in medical spas right now. They draw your blood, spin it in a centrifuge to separate the plasma, then either inject it back into your face or microneedle it into your skin. The promise is that your own growth factors will stimulate collagen and rejuvenate your complexion. See the connection? We're still using blood as a beauty treatment. We've just medicalized it, made it sound scientific. The Victorian version removed blood, the modern version re-injects it. But the fundamental concept that your blood holds beauty secrets that need to be extracted and manipulated, that's pure Victorian thinking with a contemporary medical veneer. And here's the kicker. In 2018, a New Mexico spa was shut down after 2 clients contracted HIV from improperly sterilized equipment used in vampire facials, the exact same risk that existed in Victorian medical offices when tools weren't properly cleaned between patients. Different disease, same danger, same willingness to accept risk for beauty. So here we are, over 150 years later, still poisoning ourselves with heavy metals and cosmetics, still compressing our organs with shapewear, still injecting foreign substances into our faces, still using blood as a beauty treatment, still making the same calculation that social acceptance is worth physical risk. The methods have evolved just enough to fool us into thinking we're different from our Victorian ancestors. We're not. We're just using their playbook with better lighting and social media documentation. Now I'm going to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. This isn't going to change, not because the beauty industry is too powerful, though it is, not because regulations are insufficient, though they are, but because the fundamental human vulnerability being exploited, the desperate desire to be seen as valuable, attractive, worthy of love and attention, that doesn't go away. That's hardwired into our social nature. As long as there's insecurity, there will be someone selling a solution. As long as there are beauty standards, there will be extreme measures to achieve them. But here's what you can do. You can recognize the pattern. You can see these modern treatments for what they are, Victorian beauty practices in contemporary packaging. You can ask yourself before trying any new procedure or product, would this look normal to someone from 1870? If the answer is yes, maybe that's not the innovation you've been sold. Maybe that's just history repeating itself because we forgot to learn the lesson. The Victorian beauty industry killed people, openly, documentedly, with witnesses and medical records and newspaper accounts, and still women participated because the social cost of refusing was too high. We like to think we're past that we've evolved, that we'd never choose beauty over health, but the numbers don't lie. The modern beauty and cosmetic procedure industry is worth over $500 billion globally and growing every year. That's not happening because people are secure and satisfied. That's happening because the Victorian equation still works. Make them feel inadequate, sell them a solution, ignore the consequences, profit. I'm not saying don't wear makeup. I'm not saying don't care about your appearance. I'm saying understand what you're participating in. Understand that the feeling that your natural face isn't enough, that your natural body isn't right, that you need to buy something to fix yourself, that feeling was manufactured deliberately by people who profit from your insecurity, and they've been refining that manufacturing process for over a century. The Victorian beauty method that survived in silence until today isn't one specific product or practice. It's the entire system, the ideology that your value is determined by your appearance, that your appearance needs constant intervention, that extreme measures are justified, that risk is acceptable, that pain is the price, that suffering is noble, that your natural self is the problem and purchasing products is the solution. That's the method. That's what survived. Everything else is just details. So the next time you're about to buy that serum, book that treatment, start that regimen, ask yourself one question. Would a Victorian woman recognize what I'm about to do? If yes, maybe learn from her mistakes instead of repeating them, because the beauty industry is counting on you not making that connection. They've spent billions ensuring each generation thinks their dangers are new, their solutions are different, their suffering is unique. It's not. It never was. It's just the same Victorian playbook with better graphic design. That's the truth they don't want you to see. That's the method that survived in silence. Not arsenic or mercury or belladonna specifically, but the willingness to poison yourself slowly if the promise is beauty. That survived. That's still here. That's still working. And it will keep working until we collectively decide that maybe, just maybe, the Victorian women who died for beauty died for nothing, and we don't have to join them.